Well, that was fun for about a quarter-ish until Sean Clifford got knocked out of the game and things just went completely downhill from there. Once again, Tim Aiden, writer of Black Sheep Diaries, joined by my trusty sidekick, Marty Leap. Marty, say hello if you can muster a hello at this point.
Yeah, we're here. That was frustrating for a lot of reasons, but we're here. We're here to talk about it. We're here to talk everybody through it.
We're alive. I'm newly certified in CPRs this morning, so I mean I not sure if I know how to give them remotely, Marty, but not that you really need it at this point. I think we've all kind of come down nerves wise, just in the acceptance phase at this point of this loss.
Yeah, I think so. But yeah, it's good to know if anybody does need it remotely in the comment section or whatever, just let us know and Tim will jump in there and bail you out.
Yeah, just give you remote chest compressions for the so. But yeah, it's one. It's like I said, maybe I can't call it tale of two halves necessarily because Cliff got knocked out sooner than that. But maybe really a tale of two different games. I mean, it was a different game when Sean Clifford was in there and he was hitting his receivers in stride, and completely different once Taquan Roberson had to come in for Cliff, and they false started themselves to death because he and the offensive line don't have their snap cadence together. And not to mention, of course, his vision, as far as finding the open receiver was nothing like Sean Clifford's. So hence why we keep thinking that this offense would have certainly put up more than 20 points, had Cliff stayed healthy. And it would have been enough to overcome any kind of offensive awakening that Iowa may have had. Which, I mean, frankly, I guess to the defense's credit, they held them off for a good portion of the game. But, at some point, if you keep going 3 and out, you keep false starting yourself to the point where you're punting from your own end zone constantly, this Iowa team is going to feast on that and take full advantage. And that's pretty much what they did. Finally, after struggling most of the day throwing the ball, Spencer Petras had a nice little misdirection pass for the go-ahead touchdown. So, Marty, just your thoughts. Just obviously, the injuries and all, but I mean, how did you feel coming into this game? And I guess, how do you feel right now at this point?
Yeah, I mean, coming into the game, I picked Penn State to win. I believe I said 23-17, 23-16, or something like that. It was a 6 or 7 point victory I predicted. And I thought this had the potential to be a game where Penn State blew Iowa out. And early on, it looked like Penn State was going to blow Iowa out. I mean, it was 17-3. Penn State had outgained Iowa 208-49. Penn State had scored on 3 of their 5 possessions. The 2 possessions they didn't were interceptions. But those interceptions, one was a pass where Clifford's getting hit in the end zone as he throws. If he's not making that throw out of his own end zone, he probably just takes a sack and eats it, but he was trying to avoid the safety. And the other interception was one where Jahan Dotson did not play defensive back at all. And if Dotson goes up and gets his hand in there, it's probably an incomplete pass, and Penn State was driving on that possession. So Iowa's defense really didn't stop Penn State at all with Sean Clifford in a quarterback. Penn State stopped themselves twice. And even on Clifford's last possession where they had to settle for the field goal, if the offensive line gave Clifford a half second more in pass protection, he had Brenton Strange wide open for a first down and then some. So Penn State's probably looking at worst case scenario, 1st and goal there, maybe get a 21-3 lead, at which point Clifford potentially actually into the game with injury may not have even mattered. Or if they give Clifford that extra half second, he might not take the hit and get hurt. And I think that's where it's frustrating. I mean, I know you agree with me as Penn State fans. We've been through a lot of frustrating losses all time, especially in recent years. Maybe the top of that list was a 2008 trip to Kinnick Stadium. But this was a game Penn State had no business losing. It was very clear from early on they were the far superior team to Iowa. They were dominating this game. And then Sean Clifford got hurt, and that changed everything. And, I mean, to Iowa's credit, their defense just swarmed Taquan Roberson. To the credit of Iowa's offense, they made just enough plays. But, I mean, man, you really got to I feel like if you're going to place blame for this loss, I don't necessarily blame the coaching staff for in-game decisions, but I think you got to throw some blame at the feet of the coaching staff for a combination of not recruiting the quarterback position better, not developing Taquan Roberson better, which again might not be completely on anybody. He just might be who he is as a quarterback. But looking back on it, and I guess it doesn't come as a surprise, especially because they were in the portal looking for a quarterback helping the offseason. Them not getting Will Levis to stick around, this was the first time we felt that. Because I don't know if Will Levis in there makes a difference in the passing game. It definitely makes a difference in the running game because of Levis's ability to lower that shoulder and go get 4 or 5 yards at a clip. I feel very confident. And again, this is probably a ridiculous statement to even say for a lot of reasons. But I feel confident if Will Levis was still here, Penn State wins this game. Because I think if they would have even had competent quarterback play after Clifford exits with how tremendous the defense played, which we will get into, this was just an incredible effort from the defense with how great they played with even average quarterback play. Penn State 6-0 right now.
Right. I was gonna get on to mention where the lack of quarterback recruiting, from where a lot of the staff messed up, quarterback recruiting and how they handled the QB situation. Obviously, I guess Will Levis, I'm not sure what they could have done to convince him to stay, especially once Mike Yursich came in, and I think Levis realized maybe he wasn't a fit for that system. Obviously being more of a runner, running being more of his forte. Now, I do agree. If we did have Levis, I think we do hang on. Penn State does hang on to win that game. I think he's obviously way he can lower the shoulder, but I think he would have at least had a little more competency in the pass game, at least compared to Taquan. And I don't want to turn this whole thing into a complete crap on Taquan. It's not fair to the kid. He got thrown into the fire. So that's I'm not going to bash him too much on here, but it would definitely help to have Levis there. I think we up 2 touchdowns. If you have Levis subbing for Cliff, I think it's enough for them to hang on and win the game. But also, I think this is where the lack of a running game also came back to bite Penn State. If they at least were able to, like you saw Iowa, of course, not like they lit it up on the ground, but they did. Tyler Goodson gutted out a good 88 yards. He had to carry it 25 times to get there, but Penn State didn't come anywhere close to that. I mean, Kevon Lee was the best thing. It was 10 carries for 30 yards, and then Noah Kane 8 carries for 15 yards. He did have a touchdown to his credit, and then Devin Ford 1 carry for a yard. But the rest of the running was done on the quarterback's legs. Cliff, a couple nice runs early on, and then Roberson, to his credit, ripped off a couple good runs, which Iowa clearly wasn't prepared for. But they adjusted, and without his ability to throw and without any of the running backs' ability to get anything going, it was kind of like this is like watching a slow, agonizing death. You knew. I spent the whole second half just waiting for that other shoe to drop, and sure enough, that's what it happened come fourth quarter. I mean, but yeah, it's frustrating in that sense. But like I mentioned before we started this show, like I'm actually surprisingly calm and cool about it, because I know if Cliff is healthy, we're celebrating being 6-0 and 1-0 this week.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Ultimately, everything Penn State wants to accomplish this season is still in front of them. Had you told me
comment or allude to that, he's reset it. Right here, Mr. William Bishop.
Yeah, and I agree with that. If Penn State can get a rematch with Iowa in the Big Ten championship game, I would pick 10, assuming Sean Clifford's healthy. And if he's not, they're not going to get there. But, I would pick Penn State 10 times out of 10. I think what frustrates and worries me coming out of this is the Clifford injury. Because I still believe that if Sean Clifford is 100% healthy when they go to Columbus at the end of the month, they can beat the Buckeyes. And had you told me coming into the season, hey, Penn State's going to go 11-1 and you can pick the game they lose, I would have picked Iowa, because this is a good loss at Kinnick Stadium against a top 5 team. It's a loss that doesn't hurt you in your division. If you go 11-1 with a loss at Iowa, you're going to Indianapolis. And if you win that game, you go to the college football playoff. It's that simple. Now, that's obviously a lot of work to be done there. And right now, if you're Penn State, you just got to worry about getting through your bye week, getting healthy, and then beating Illinois in 2 weeks. And, I'm sure we'll get into the Illinois game later. And that's one thing, too, that I think works in Penn State's favor is no knock on Illinois whatsoever. Penn State essentially has 2 straight bye weeks leading up to Ohio State here to get healthy. But, yeah, I still think that if Penn State can get healthy, they're still capable of beating Ohio State. They're still capable of going to the Big Ten championship game. Losing a West game doesn't hurt. It's very similar to that Minnesota game in 2019. As frustrating of a loss as that was, because that was another game Penn State probably should have won. That one is a little bit different. It was turnovers by Clifford that put them in that position. And then
that and just piss poor secondary play.
Yeah, bad secondary play. That late pick call on Daniel Georgia probably shouldn't have been flagged. There was a lot of things in that game. But you were in that same position coming out of that. As frustrating of a loss as that was, because that was a game where you're the better team, you were 8-1, but that only loss was to a Western Division team. You still controlled your destiny. Now, they went to Columbus 2 weeks later and lost to Ohio State. And that was another game where if Clifford doesn't get hurt, who knows what may have happened, because they lost, 28-20, something like that. And that was a game where Clifford didn't play in the second half. So, again, you control your destiny right now if you're Penn State, which coming into the season, had you told me through 6 games Penn State would be 5-1, especially if you told me that loss had been to Iowa, I would have said sign me up. Between Wisconsin, between Auburn, between Indiana, I thought this was an absolute just gauntlet of a stretch to get to their bye week. And like I said, had you told me preseason Penn State was going to be 5-1 going into their bye week and be a top 10 team, I would have taken that every single time. So as frustrating of a loss as this is, as frustrated as I am, as frustrated as many Penn State fans are, I think we all kind of need to take a step back right now and look at this and say, you know what? Had you told me in August that going into the bye week, Penn State was going to be 5-1 and that only loss was going to be at Iowa by 3 points, everybody would have taken that. Absolutely everybody would have taken that. So I think that's something we all need to keep in mind, myself included. We all need to keep in mind right now.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, this was a loss to a cross-division team, so it does not, it's not like losing to Ohio State or Michigan, which can hurt you in the Eastern Division race. Now, of course, this is all dependent on, like I said, these next 2 weeks. Can Cliff get healthy? Does PJ Mustipher, Devon Ellies get healthy on the D line? That we definitely need to rebuild that D line depth after a couple went down today. And I guess thank goodness, Arnold Ebiketie came back in quickly, and same with Jaquan Brisker. They both went down briefly at one point. But yeah, the injury bug just I'm trying to think of a game prior to this where the injury bug just ravaged Penn State's, key guys like today and had such an effect like today's game. I don't know about you. I'm drawing a blank right now. Maybe the Ohio State game in 2017 when
that's I was going to say 2017 Ohio State where you lost Ryan Bates and Ryan Bates
went down.
Yeah, because the Buckles injury was one thing because that came literally it's similar to PJ Mustipher today. I think it literally came on like the first or second play of the game.
Was it that soon? I thought it was late in the second half. Well, I don't know.
I'm pretty certain it was on Ohio State's first. Now Penn State got the ball to start because Saquon ran the kickoff back, but I'm pretty certain it was on Ohio State's first possession. But regardless, it was the Buckles injury that crippled you because when Buckles went down, I think that was like mid-third quarter, early fourth, somewhere in there. The offense could not move the ball because they couldn't protect Trace McSorley. And, it's not the same, obviously, because we're talking offensive line versus quarterback. But it's very similar to today where once Clifford went down, the offense just couldn't do anything. So I think, yeah, that 2017 Ohio State game, which is fitting because that's probably the last time I've been this frustrated after a Penn State loss, was probably the only other game I could think of where injuries really played that big of an impact on the outcome of the game.
Oh, no. Yeah. It's just, like it's, I've been saying though, as far as, how this impacts going forward, obviously it's the bye week cannot have come at a better time. I mean, even before all these catastrophic this catastrophic injury to Cliff, I remember thinking to myself, going like, okay, well, at least the team has after this game has a week off to get healthy before they face Illinois, a team that I still think they will beat by a couple touchdowns. Just to the reason I say that is Wisconsin, a team that, unlike Penn State, doesn't have any quarterbacks, as you and I know. They went into Champaign today and shut out the Illini 24-0, and Graham Mertz 10 of 19 for 100 yards and interception. So it's not like they didn't light it up a quarterback play. It was a running game. Ches Malusi and Brandon Allen is his name. Braylon Allen, sorry. Braylon Allen. Both went over 100 yards each and had a touchdown. So obviously having a run game for Wisconsin's case, that's one thing keeping their offense afloat. So we'll see. Obviously, I would doubt Cliff plays in that game unless he's really made significant progress. In the meantime, hopefully they can at least run the ball a little better on Illinois compared to Iowa. Maybe Roberson. We'll see. Maybe they have more designed runs for him, or just give him some. Just give him some pass, give him easy pass plays that can build his confidence. But I think you mentioned in the Slack channel about Christian Veilleux and how much worse could he possibly have been. Now, of course, you and I aren't at the practices, so I'm sure the coaches see what these guys are doing each and every week. And I'm not sure Veilleux would have done significantly better at this point. But it will be interesting now. Cliff is out. He's going to be getting second team reps. Maybe he'll even be splitting first team reps with Taekwon this next week or two, at least until Cliff gets back to healthy. And hopefully, there was a rumor. I mean, it's unsubstantiated. There was some rumor about going around the press box about broken ribs, but nothing's been confirmed at this point. So hopefully it's not that bad. But we'll see. Broken ribs, I don't know, I guess is obviously anecdotal, but my dad, when he was a little younger, he played a lot of racquetball, and he told me when he one time he ran into a person he was playing against, and he ended up cracked a rib, and I think it lingered on for about close to a month. But he remembers it hurt to breathe, hurt when he laughed. I can't imagine how much pain Cliff must have been in if that was the case. I'm sure that medical staff has plenty of good drugs to inject him with to stave off the pain. So he looked rather calm and subdued on the sideline there. So they probably mellowed him up with something, perhaps.
Yeah, and the thing is too, Cliff, for his shortcomings he has had at times during his Penn State career, as much as you and I both have been critical of him at times, no one has ever once questioned that kid's toughness. I have no doubt if he was not playing, especially in a game like this, a top 4 matchup, that he physically was not capable of playing. I think Sean Clifford's very much one of those guys where you've got to cut his leg off to keep him off the field, essentially. So I have zero doubts that whatever it was that happened, either he was in that much pain or the medical staff viewed it as being that dangerous to his long-term health for him to play, for him to be out there. Because, like I said, you and I have been critical of Cliff in the past, but there's no denying he's a tough son of a bitch. He's a kid who's going to go out there and he's going to give you 110% every rep, even if he's not 100% physically, because that's just the kind of player he is. But yeah, looking ahead to Illinois, I very much think that's going to be a kind of game. I would expect we don't see Sean Clifford. We probably don't see PJ Mustipher. John Lovett apparently was banged up today. Going to guess we don't see him. As long as you win that game, it could be freaking 3-0. You just win that damn game, you're going to take it right now. Because you have, when you're Penn State, when you're any team in the Big Ten East, but especially Penn State, because in the past, half decade or so, you have separated yourself, I feel, from the rest of the division as the second best program in the division behind the Buckeyes. Ohio State's your Super Bowl. you know, going back to 2016, every year since 2016, whoever has won between Penn State and Ohio State has gone on to win the Big Ten. It's the biggest regular season game of the year in the Big Ten every season. So you want to be as healthy as possible when you go to Columbus on Halloween weekend. So you could beat Illinois freaking 3. You could beat them 2-0 on a safety, and you're going to be happy. You just want to get guys healthy. And, with defensive tackle, before we get too much further, I do want to mention one guy that I thought played a tremendous game this afternoon was Kaziah Izzard, redshirt freshman defensive tackle. He's been playing more and more in recent weeks. Today had to play a ton because of Mustafa essentially missing the entire game. And I thought Izzard played a tremendous game. He comes from a great high school program at DeMatha Catholic in Maryland. He's a kid I know the Penn State staff's very high on. He's a kid I've always been very high on. I think he's got a super bright future at Penn State. And I feel like we started to see that today. I really thought that a lot among the kind of unsung heroes type of things that are going to go missed in a game like this because you're going to focus on the loss. You're going to focus on losing Sean Clifford, stuff like that. I feel like Izzard played a tremendous game. I think he's a kid who, had Penn State hung on and won, Izzard's a kid whose praises would really be getting sung afterwards. So I want to make sure he does not go unmentioned because I thought Kaziah Izzard just played an absolute tremendous game of defensive tackle for the Nittany Lions.
Yeah, I mean, it was good to see. Yeah, when obviously with Mustafa and Ellie's going down, and it's good to at least see. I guess the silver line, you saw some depth being built up on that D line today with those two gone, and Kaziah Izzard was one. Like I said, that stood out. So nice to see. So yeah, like I said, going forward, bye week, got Illinois after that, and then Ohio State in 3 weeks. I guess if Sean, let's just say, obviously hypothetical, we don't know what his long-term prognosis is, but let's say, Cliff gets healthy enough these next couple of weeks. Obviously, he won't play Illinois. Let's assume he's not playing Illinois. Let's say he's cleared to play for Ohio State. How confident are you at that point about going into Columbus and possibly coming out with a win?
I mean, if Clifford's healthy going into Columbus, I still think Penn State can beat them. Just Penn State's defense, man. People talk about Iowa's defense all day long, and I laugh because when Penn State went up 17-3, anyone who's ever watched a Penn State game with me, I know some of my friends and people who are friends of mine who read Black Shoe Diaries regularly. Shout out to you, Adam Seitz. I know you're watching this. Who've ever watched a game with me? No, I will talk to myself nonstop watching a Penn State game. And when Penn State went up 17-3 today, I may have said Iowa best defense in the country, threw in a couple of curse words to reiterate that they are not the best defense in the country and that the best defense in the country may reside in Happy Valley. And my 4-year-old son then corrected me for said curse words and said, "Dad, you can't say that." And I said, "Okay, you're right. I'll give you that." But I really do think Penn State's defense is a top 2 or 3 defense nationally. They're probably not as good as Georgia. Georgia's defense looks like a freaking NFL defense. But, Georgia aside, I think you can make an argument that Nittany Lions have the best defense in the country. That defense is going to keep them in every game. We saw that today. Today, their defense almost went on the road against the number 3 team in the country and damn near won them that freaking game. That defense is going to give them a chance in Columbus if the offense is healthy, especially when you look at what Ohio State struggles with defensively. Their linebacker play is very suspect, and Penn State loves to run crossing routes with Parker Washington. They love to get their tight ends in the seam. That's something they could exploit. I think Ohio State's secondary has a lot of questions. I don't think they could cover Jahan Dotson or Keandre Lambert-Smith over a 60-minute period. So if Clifford's healthy, I still think this team can go into Columbus and beat Ohio State. I really do. Largely because I think the things Penn State does well on offense are the things Ohio State's defense struggles to defend. But it all depends on Cliff's health. If we go to Columbus on October 30th and Clifford isn't healthy, I think Penn State could get their freaking doors blown off because I don't think the offense can sustain drives. And as good as this defense is, it'll get worn out. Or, as we saw tonight, they make one blown coverage play, and it's the difference in the game. So I still think, like I said, as long as Clifford is healthy, I still firmly believe this team is capable of going to Columbus, beating Ohio State, and get into the Big Ten championship. And even if they still lose that game, as long as you get Cliff back, you got to think this is still a 10-win team. And after everything that happened last year, combined with the recruiting class that's coming in, there's not a Penn State fan in the world who would have told you preseason they wouldn't take 10-2 and most likely near a sixth berth. So I know I mentioned this earlier, but I do think this is the kind of loss where a lot of people got to kind of put it in perspective. Hey, what were your expectations coming into the season? And had I told you preseason this where the team was going to be, everybody would have taken it. Everybody would have taken it. So I think that's.
I would have gladly taken 5-1.
Yeah, I thought coming into the season,
I thought they'd be 4-2 at this point.
Yep, that's what I thought best case scenario was 4-2. 3-3 was something I wouldn't have. 2-4 wouldn't have shocked me because I thought Indiana would be better than they were, and I thought Penn State wouldn't be quite as good as they are. So I just think that's something people got to keep in mind. And I really do think that ultimately this is still a top 10 team in the country. They still have a tremendous defense. And this offense, as long as Sean Clifford is healthy, is going to be a handful, largely because I thought Mike Yurcich was calling just an amazing game before Clifford got hurt too. His play calling, that sixth sense for game flow, for in-game adjustments, he was carving Iowa up. And I'm sure Yurcich was kicking himself once Clifford went out. And one thing I will say about Yurcich and I don't mean to rant here, but at the time I didn't like the call, but looking back on it, I kind of understand I like it now. I think it was the second possession Roberson was in, first or second, where Penn State took a deep shot out of their own end zone and got picked off. And it's like, you know what? At the time I complained about it, but that was Yurcich still trying to run his offense. And he was trying to give Roberson the opportunity to prove to him if he could run his offense or not. So I give Yurcich credit for still believing in his offense, even the backup quarterback. And after that interception, they really went to a shell. But it's got to be a frustrating game for Mike Yurcich too, where he was just carving up this supposed best defense in the country until his quarterback got hurt.
Yeah. And it leads me to wonder how, obviously, assuming Cliff is I can play against Illinois. I was, they're gonna maybe put some tweaks in. Yours gonna put some tweaks in his offense to make it more, I guess, Roberson friendly, to put it kindly. So, at least when it comes time to play Illinois, you can at least string together some good-looking drives and finish with some points. Not look like the complete mess that it was against Iowa. Now, I guess I'll go out on a limb and say they won't false start themselves to death like they did, being with a friendly crowd at Beaver Stadium. But, definitely I think the first thing they need to work on is, how they snap the ball without anyone false starting. Communication. First thing that's got to get done. And there's even them. They have 2 weeks to do that for Illinois. So my hope is you at least see a better Taekwon than what you saw today. And frankly, it's such a low bar that, even slightly better Taekwon could still do enough damage to, that they can beat Illinois by 2 or 3 scores.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, you don't want to, like you said before we started, we're not trying to make this a show where we just bash Taekwon Roberson, whoever it is. But on throws that went past the line of scrimmage today, Taekwon Roberson was 2 of 16 for 14 yards and 2 interceptions. Every throw he made where the throw went past 10 yards was incomplete. And it's not like he didn't have guys open. On Penn State's penultimate possession, where they started inside their own 10, on third down, he had Cam Sullivan-Brown wide open, overthrew him in a ball. Now, Sullivan-Brown probably should have caught it because it hit him in the hands, but he had to go full extension to go up and get it. You got to make a better throw. The following play on fourth down has Jahan Dotson. Jahan Dotson, of all people, wide open. And he overthrows him by 2 or 3 yards and gets picked off. Penn State was still getting guys open. On the possession before that, when Penn State went for it, they had fourth down in like 3-ish or so from about midfield, and they went for it. And this is the possession that led to the Iowa game-winning touchdown. There was a fourth down where they ran an RPO, and I don't remember who the receiver was coming across the middle. He was wide open for an easy first down, and he threw the check down to Kevon Lee, and Kevon Lee got dropped after a 1 yard gain on 4th and 3. Guys were open. Roberson made poor reads. He made some poor throws. So I think that the thing you take out of that as a positive is that your offense is still getting receivers open. And like you said, Tim, you have all of this week and all of next week of Roberson working with that first team offense and trying to work some of these kinks out. And again, no knock on Illinois at all. Illinois is very possibly the worst team in the Big Ten. So that's also a good opponent. If this is where this goes, that is a good opponent for Roberson to get his first career start against. And hopefully be able to build up some confidence where, if nothing else, if as the season progresses with Ohio State, Michigan, and Michigan State as 3 of Penn State's last 5 games, if you do need to go to Roberson again, hopefully he's got some confidence and some momentum and things of that nature built up for himself.
Right. And just take a look for some comments here. Yeah, I saw one. Spencer Rattler from the portal. What do you think?
I mean, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't guarantee
it wouldn't be worse than what we had coming out
no.
backing up Cliff today. So I would have rather been running out Spencer Rattler there if Cliff were
absolutely
hurt.
I mean, now that said, I can't envision Spencer Rattler coming to Penn State because I'm sure the staff's not going to guarantee him a starting job. I mean, for those who are listening, may not know who we're talking about when we say Drew Allar. Drew Allar is going to be an early enrollee, get to campus in January. He is currently a top 50 quarterback recruit in the country, most likely going to end up a 5-star, top 20-ish type guy. So you're looking at one of those quarterbacks who makes an immediate impact, which could hurt them in the transfer portal. But yeah, like you said, I would have much rather had Spencer Rattler coming off the bench today than Taquan Roberson.
Right. Let's see. Got good comments here. Just see a couple. Let's see. It's So this is like not directly related to what I was going to say about Iowa's fans, but I was going to say I found it most annoying when they were booing every single time a Penn State defensive player went down of an injury, and this is like when Mustafer, when Brisker and AK Von Ellies went down at times. Every time they're booing, and as if they were running some fast-paced offense and our best players were faking injuries to try to slow it down. I mean, it was just the dumbest thing ever. It was also dumb was seeing their fans storm the field like they pulled off some major upset. I mean, they were the higher ranked team, technically speaking, and they were the favorite at home, technically speaking, and yet, you want to storm the field like, you were some, mighty little underdog that nobody was giving a chance, and, et cetera. And, in a game which frankly, they only won because Penn State starting quarterback who was having somewhat of a field day. I'll say somewhat because he did throw a couple picks, but overall was doing a solid job, got knocked out. Like you said, I repeat this ad nauseum, but Philadelphia Cliff, this is about probably a 10 to 14 point Penn State win, at least.
Yeah, I agree. One thing too, the injuries, and Joel Klatt even pointed this out on the Fox broadcast. Like he said, to an extent he understood the frustration of the Iowa fans because it seemed to happen after a lot of big plays. But like, if you're a defense who's going to run the fake cramp defense to slow an offense down, you're not doing it with your best defensive tackle, PJ Mustafer. You're not doing it with your best defensive end, Arnold Obikade. You're not doing it with your All-American safety in Jaquan Brisker, excuse me. Like, you're not – those aren't the guys you have. You send some schlum off the bench out there for a play and have him fall down and flop around and hold his leg. You don't have what your best players come off the field. So I agree it was not a good look for Iowa. To me, it was disappointing. Like, I would expect that from Pitt fans, from Rutgers fans, from Maryland fans, not from Iowa fans, though. And yeah, it's just like you said too, the storming the field. Yes, Iowa, they were favored. They were the higher ranked team. I understand a lot of people pick Penn State to win this game, but ultimately, when you're the number 3 team in the country and favored to win a game at home, and you only win that game, like you said, Tim, because the other team's quarterback got hurt when you were on the brink of being boat raced out of your own damn stadium, you shouldn't be storming the field. So it definitely was not a good look today for Iowa fans.
No, not at all. It was, it just got frankly annoying. I guess on the plus side, we don't play Iowa for the next few years at least, after having them on the schedule for the last several years for some odd reason.
Yeah, because the Big Ten hates us. That's why. I'm convinced.
Yeah, the Big Ten. Yeah, they hated us. I think Kevin Warren's at least putting a stop to that. So thank you, Commissioner Warren.
Yes.
For getting Iowa off the
schedule. Like the thing with that too is like all jokingness aside on this and all seriousness with the Big Ten hating Penn State or whatever. Ultimately, if you're the Big Ten, you're 2 programs that give you the best opportunity of winning a national championship, or Ohio State and Penn State. And as much as I know we like to rag on the SEC for stuff, one thing the SEC does great is protecting Alabama and Georgia. You would think the Big Ten would do more to protect Ohio State and Penn State, because even Ohio State, we've seen them get sent to go play Kinnick Stadium at night, go play at Purdue at night. Like we've seen them put Friday night games. Like you don't do that to your top teams because you want your conference to be in the playoff. And that is one thing I'm hopeful under Kevin Warren is that we will see the Big Ten protect their top programs the way the SEC does, as opposed to, taking the Pac-12 approach of, hey, you know what? Your best chance of getting a playoff, go play somewhere on a Friday night. Oh, go to the toughest stadium in the conference every single season. Like it's frustrating, and I'm just hoping that is something that will change under Warren.
Yeah, not a fan of the Friday. I mean, I still remember, what was it? A few years ago at Illinois, it was a Friday night game and it was 9:00 Eastern time.
Yep.
On
they
a work,
kind of like him hauled around.
a lot of people, most people are. It's still a work day. They're tired. On the East Coast, we're talking. I mean, they probably had to either take a nap or, make some coffee or whatever to stay up and watch that one to the end, because it would have ended after midnight. So, and then of course, as fun as that 59-0 beatdown at Maryland was a couple of years ago, I'm just not a fan of Friday night games. Period.
No, I agree.
I feel like Friday night's for high school.
Mm-hmm.
But that's me. By the way, if you like defense, Marty, turn to ABC. It's 3-0 Michigan at.
I've got it on. I'm really hoping for a Nebraska win, because Michigan losing would definitely pick spirits up a bit tonight, I feel.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. After I think every college, whatever team you root for, watch it. I feel like after a loss, you just get in that mode of, I want to see everybody else lose.
Yeah.
Share my misery.
You just want chaos at this point.
You just want chaos. You're like, F it, burn it to the ground.
Michigan's struggling. Notre Dame's losing. They're almost at halftime. Like, go Hokies, go Cornhuskers. And
I forgot Notre Dame was playing this week.
Notre Dame's losing 10-7. Let me double check here. I think there's like 2 minutes till halftime in that game. Yeah, or 5 minutes till halftime. Virginia Tech's winning 10-7.
Okay.
But seriously, all joking aside, Michigan and Notre Dame losses also help Penn State, because that'll help kind of cushion the blow of how far Penn State's going to fall in the standings here.
Well, and you got Texas A&M currently up 10-7 on Bama. Of course, it's early.
Yeah, the Alabama death machine, I'm sure, will kick in at some point. But
I'm sure, yeah. Bill O'Brien calling the shots and whatnot. So, anyway,
this weekend still in the top 10 after this game, you'll be. And one thing, too, I think will help them is, if you are a voter and you did actually legitimately watch this game, or even you look at the box score, you can see the drop off once Sean Clifford left. You shouldn't penalize a team for going on the road against a top 5 team and nearly winning with your backup quarterback. Like that's a team that should not be penalized with where they wind up at in the AP rankings.
Right. I mean, Penn State's still going to stay in the top 10. I mean, a close loss to a fellow top 5 team on the road, you're not going to drop very far. And like I said, especially, the voters who watched the game, or even if you look at the recap, like, that will mention Sean Clifford going out in the second quarter, and they'll see the drop off. So, I mean, I'm not gonna. Obviously, I got much bigger concerns right now than where Penn State's gonna be ranked tomorrow. Namely, Sean Clifford.
Yeah.
Long-term prognosis. We don't. I don't think I have Twitter open. I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any kind of updates or anything. Maybe I'll have to, check some other message board stuff. But it's really coming down. Really, the main thing on my mind right now is Cliff, just what his status is. I feel like whatever that is, that's kind of gonna. It's hard for me to really say what my outlook is for the rest of the season without knowing what Cliff's prognosis is. So it's up in the air at this point. Aside from me feeling confident they'll beat Illinois, I just don't know about the rest of the games until we get some confirmation about some key injuries. But this is the perfect week coming up. No game, just rest up. Then you got the worst team in the Big Ten coming to Happy Valley for homecoming on the 23rd, and then the much anticipated trip to Columbus on October 30th, Halloween Eve. So, as of course, with Penn State being on a bye week this coming week, our post game show will also be taking the week off, and so that means we will see you folks in 2 weeks for the post game show against Illinois. Marty, any parting thoughts, final thoughts, things you want to get off your chest?
No, I mean, like I said, I think everybody, and again, myself included right now, need to remember that Penn State they control their own destiny. You win the rest of your games, you're going to go to Indianapolis with a trip to the Big Ten championship or a trip to the college football playoff, on the line. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, coming into the season, had you told me Penn State be 5-1 going into their bye week, especially the only loss being at Iowa by 3 points, I would have taken that over and over again. I still think when fully healthy, this is a very, very good football team. Got to get healthy. And one other thing I will mention too, real quick, is Sean Clifford. I thought before he left this game, we really were continuing to see the evolution of Sean Clifford. The old Sean Clifford throwing the interception on his first pass of the night, throwing the interception on the third possession would have crumbled. This Sean Clifford did not. He came back swinging, throwing bullets, hitting receivers, using his feet to keep plays alive. I think that's part of what's frustrating too, is we were continuing to see the evolution of Sean Clifford tonight. And also a well-deserved shout out to Curtis Jacobs, linebacker, former 5-star recruiter. I thought really had his coming out party tonight. I'm currently working on my takeaways article for Black Sheep Diary. So, cheap plug. Make sure you check that out here shortly when I get it published. But I thought one of my takeaways, tonight was kind of Jacobs' coming out party. He was in the backfield. He was all over the place. Tackles for a loss, leading over the Penn State defense, and tip of the cap to Brent Pry and his group. Because once Clifford went out and you saw what this offense was, I'm sure Pry and his staff and his players knew we got to put this team on our back. We've got to carry them to victory. And man, they were one busted coverage away from putting the team on their back and carrying them to victory tonight in Iowa City. I think
that was just a well-run misdirection play. That's designed to get behind the coverage. So
it was perfectly executed by Iowa.
Even the best secondaries can get fooled by that.
Yep, it was perfectly executed by Iowa.
I can't blame the D. I mean, I can't get mad at the D. The D did everything they possibly could, and I mean,
the defense
they had to have been gassed in the fourth quarter. And we've seen them hang on despite being obviously Wisconsin being one, but like I said, and I know if I'm going to end the show, but I did see a comment I had to address. Showtime 53. I can't agree with that comment. I mean, I don't know what you expected Yurcich to do without his best quarterback. I mean, he was literally trying to MacGyver something out of Roberson. I mean, the fact they even managed to score some points, frankly, with him quarterbacking at any point was kind of miraculous. Now, if you want to blame, Franklin's staff for not handling the quarterback recruiting well, or mismanaging or mismanaging the quarterback roster, then that's a different discussion, and I would be inclined to agree. But I mean, I can't. I mean, it's really I can't really blame the coaches for a catastrophic injury like Cliff's derailing things tonight. I mean, that was just a really unfortunate event. So, but I think we've kind of beaten that dead horse enough, and I think now we're going to call it. So thanks for joining us, everybody. We will see you in 2 weeks. Marty, you got your takeaways coming up in Black Shirt Diaries tonight. You're working on them right now. My position grades up tomorrow sometime. So blackshirtdiaries.com, your SB Nation source, SB Nation's Penn State blog. We're not just covering not just football. If you're a basketball fan, hockey just started their season. Wrestling coverage especially is tremendous. We got tremendous wrestling writers. So, stick with us year round, even after football season's over, blackshirtdiaries.com. And you've been watching the Penn State postgame show here on the Voice of College Football, Mark Rogers TV. We will see you after Illinois. Marty, have a good one.
You too, buddy.